Lesson 12. Photo of Everyday Life Photojournalism. Photojournalism is the process of storytelling using the medium of photography as your main storytelling device. While a journalist will use their pen and paper to tell stories, a photojournalist will use their camera to capture the visual representation of a story. Most of us are familiar with the old adage, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." Well, this is the theory behind photojournalism. News publications are willing to pay top dollar to those photojournalists who can capture the most dramatic images on film or their CCD chip. Robert Capa is a great example of a photojournalist. He photographed many wars and had the motto, "If your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough." Unfortunately, this motto led to his death as he was fatally injured in the Indochina War. His work, along with many other photojournalists, have educated millions of people on various social injustices that happen around the world. F8 and be there. The expression F8 and be there is most often attributed to the famous street photographer Arthur Felling, also known as Ouija. The phrase was widely used in the film photography era and is popular even today. Now the question is, why F8 and of all the different aperture values? Why that? Here's why. Back then, when lenses were manufactured, f/8 was often considered the best default aperture to use during shoots, as it provided sharp images with a decently wide depth of field. In just a word, Ouija gave us the easiest way to capture crisp, clear and perfect photographs in most situations. Coming to the be there part, this signifies the dynamic action of the art of photography. There can be many different possibilities in a single frame or different shooting scenarios, but they'll be useless if the photographer isn't around to capture these unique subjects. Being there is essential. Photographers cannot click stunning photos sitting in the comfort of their homes. It's important to go out there, explore, and seek interesting subjects to capture. Ouija took the be there part pretty seriously. He was known to compete against the police to be the first to report to crime scenes and disasters in New York. He arrived at such scenes much before his rivals, and that's precisely how he made a living and a career as a famous crime scene photographer. f/8 from a technical perspective now. When the lens aperture is set to f/8 or f/8, a photographer often finds themselves in the sweet spot of sharpness and depth of field, and this middle ground is well suited for almost all shooting scenarios and conditions. Maximum sharpness in a lens is typically achieved around 2 to 3 stops down from wide open, and generations of photographers have used the rule of thumb of shooting between f/8 and f/11 for optimal sharpness. This range avoids the issues of aberrations found at larger apertures and diffraction found at smaller apertures. f/8 also provides a friendly depth of field, which helps photographers capture subjects with acceptable sharpness both closer to the camera and further away. So even if the photographer isn't nailing the focal plane on the desired subject, the depth of field rendered will ensure that the subject is still in focus. The combination of an f/8 aperture and the shutter speed set to a general purpose speed gives the photographer the much required flexibility during shooting. It is also perfect for capturing shots in dynamic, high-action shooting scenarios. For instance, f/8 aperture can typically capture subjects in motion when paired with fast aperture speeds of around 1/1000 of a second. With the right general purpose camera settings, photographers can completely ignore their camera and rather be there and focus on the surroundings. So if a photographer finds something interesting and the aperture is set to f/8, there shouldn't be a worry in the world about adjusting the camera settings.